Hey everybody, welcome back to Slinging Dirt. We're finally back in studio. We're getting the studio built, but tell you what, this week we're going to have a pretty good show for you. We're going to have drivers wear your suit. I'll go into that here in a little bit.
We got a driver's interview with Chase Rudolf, Central Iowa driver.
We're going to have a tech tip with Ron Sample talking about transmissions.
And then to close out, the one and only Songer Says.
So stay tuned, it's Slinging Dirt. We'll be right back. Everybody, welcome back to Slinging Dirt. I'm Buddy Ray.
I'm Matt Dennis.
Let's just get straight to it. First and foremost, I won Winter Chicken Dinner. It's been, since 2011 since I've won something. So World of Wheels, the Joe's Karting Creative Element Sport Mod, we won first place. The Joe's Karting Go-Kart won first place, Best of Show. So we did a pretty good clean sweep at World of Wheels. But at the World of Wheels, we were talking about this before we went to recording here. We had a couple drivers there that were wearing their uniforms, and I've mentioned over and over and over again, it's not just World of Wheels. If you're at your local dirt track and the promoters want you to sign autographs and reach out to the fans, it doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees or 40 degrees out, wear your suits. The reason why I say that is I've got some pretty bad back issues right now, so I didn't have my suit on. With that being said, people were just walking right on by. Didn't even, and you saw where we were sitting, you were with us on Saturday. People just walking right on by. But the drivers that had their suits on, people weren't walking right by. They were stopping not at the car, but at the driver.
Right. And wearing your suit at an event like that, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, you're there to show off a car anyway, so why not put your suit on? But at the racetrack on a 100-degree day, do you really want to leave your suit on the whole time, or would you at least take the top half?
I would take the top half off, but in some way, when you're there representing the sport and your car and your sponsors, if you got a one-piece suit like we were saying earlier, take the top half off or down, tie the arms around. If you're in a two-piece suit, take the jacket off, keep the pants on. There's so many people that want to do what we do. I think we owe it to the fans to look the part, even if you're like me and you're not the part.
Oh, you might not be the part, but you're definitely a tool.
Yeah. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but but with that being said, make sure that people understand that you're the driver somehow, some way. I think a pair of blue jeans and your team shirt may not cut it. It might if you're a crew member, but if you're the driver, have part of your uniform on. I think that's just really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, especially if you got a suit where you got sponsors on the back or the sleeves or the front of it or something. Help show the sponsors off. I mean, they're there to support you as well, so might as well support them back.
Absolutely. Question at the World of Wheels, we were talking about this. I really cannot remember how it just came up, but you've been in racing for 18 years, I've been in racing for 22, 23 years. At what point do you consider a driver a veteran driver? I thought that was a really good question. I would have thought, 5 years maybe, you're a veteran driver. But it shocked me, a lot of people were right with what you were saying.
Well, and that's one of those things that can go two different ways. Are you a veteran driver in whatever class you're in, or are you a veteran driver from the day you climb in your first car? To me, it doesn't matter if you've raced one class or 20 classes. 8 to 10 years, I'll call you a veteran. I mean, you got a lot to learn still, but you're still not a beginner.
Well, I was mentioning Sabin. Let's say Sabin gets in the sport mods, which he was. He gets in the sport mods, he races 100 times a year. At 100 times a year over 5 years, that's 500 races. You take 500 races, in 10 to 15 years, that could be how many times some of these veteran drivers are racing over the course of 10 to 15 years. So at 5 years, he considered Sabin a veteran racer if he's only been doing it for 5 years, but doing 100 nights a year. Really? See, I would have thought after 5 years. So I kind of look at not only how long have you been a driver, but how many nights do you race a year? Now, if you're racing 10 nights a year for 5 years, you're only doing 50 nights. I don't know if I'd call you a veteran driver. But if, in a case like Sabine, where you're racing 100 nights a year for 5 years, that's 500 nights. At 20 years, at 10 years, that's only 200 nights. So you've got a 20-year span of experience crammed into 5 years.
And I can see that, but at the same time, you've got the one guy that races once or twice a year. I mean, once or twice a week, all season long. We'll call it 50 nights on the top.
Yep. That's 20 weeks, 25 weeks, 2 nights. That's 50.
It'll take him 10 years to hit that 500 mark. It'll
Right.
take some guys 5 years to hit that mark. But those are the guys, they can get out and race more often, regardless of what their circumstance is. So I don't consider those guys a veteran. I just, luck of the draw, they get to go play as much as they can.
Yeah, a lot of people were telling me that they were considering drivers veterans after 10 years. I did have one dirt track fan. Her husband used to be a driver, and when I asked her that question, or actually both of them, she goes, are we, like you said, are we talking about a driver that races one class, or are we talking about a driver that's raced a bunch of different classes? And so right away, one of the drivers that just came to mind, he's known in modifieds and late models, but he's more known for the late models, is Kyle Burke. You take Kyle Burke, you consider Kyle Burke a veteran late model driver? I would. But what she was saying is, if you've only raced one class, she's not considering you a veteran driver. And I was like, how could you not consider Kyle Burke a veteran driver? I would consider Kyle Burke one of the best, you know, one of the top 10 all-time late model drivers in the state of Nebraska, if not the Midwest. You know, so it's kind of like beauty is in the eye of the beholder type question here. I just thought it was really interesting. We were just talking. I actually had a driver tell me that he thought he was a veteran driver because he's raced for 3 years. You know, and I'm sitting here going, I've been doing this for 20-some years. I'm not the best. I'm not very good. I've always claimed that, but 20-some years, I've been around the block a time or two. I'd like to think, you know, I've earned my stripes and I could be considered a veteran, but at 3 years, I totally agree with you. There's so much more you can learn after 3 years.
Well, and back to the respective class kind of thing, look at Shannon Anderson. He's ran hobby stocks as long as I can remember now.
I would consider him a veteran hobby stock.
So would I. I mean, he's not to that 8 to 10 year mark, but 5 national championships, super nationals repeatedly,
Yeah.
track championships. I mean, the guy's got a lot of prestige going.
At some point, you can take your credentials, and I think you can, that shortens the time span at which you're considered a veteran driver.
Right.
You know, Jeff Gordon was a veteran driver. Do you consider Chase Elliott a veteran driver in the Cup Series? No. Can Chase Elliott win a Cup title? Oh, I think so, absolutely. I think he's got the know-how, the knowledge. You know, outside of Cup racing, I think he's got the experience, but I wouldn't consider him a veteran driver. Tell you what do you guys think out there? At what point do you consider a driver a veteran driver? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Like you said, I'm a dinosaur. I've been around since dirt was a rock. So let us know here on Slinging Dirt. But I tell you what, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back here in a few moments. Everybody, welcome back to Slinging Dirt. Jamie Songer and I don't know if you've ever met Chase Rudolf.
I can't say that I have.
He's knee-high to a grasshopper. It looks like he's about 13 years old, but he's out of the central Iowa area. Really, really good kid. So I'll tell you what, we're just gonna get straight to it. Here's Chase Rudolf with Jamie Songer and I.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sling and Dirt. Man, we've got one of the biggest, brightest young guns in the dirt circuit here in central Iowa and really anywhere in the Midwest coming up in the sport mod ranks. We have the driver of the 8R, Chase Rudolf. Chase, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Don't look so nervous.
I'm not nervous.
Oh, well, you look more intense at the racetrack than you do now. You look like a little meat mouse.
His neck's sore because he moved up a couple weight classes of wrestling. He's wrestling in heavier guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, if I was to throw down a $50 challenge, can I get you and Songer to lay down a... I know you're into wrestling, Songer.
I told you earlier, I'm undefeated against the Rudolph family, and I'm keeping it that way.
You think you could take him, Chase?
Probably.
Wow, there's kind of an unhidden challenge laid right there. I mean...
When I win this weight loss challenge, then we'll talk.
What's your weight loss challenge?
24 guys put in $500 a piece, and the guy who loses the most weight gets half, and the guy who loses the biggest percentage gets half. So there's $12,000 in the pot. I'd like to walk away with 6.
So if you win it, you're gonna wrestle Chase?
Yeah, if I win it, I'll wrestle Chase. I mean, obviously it's pretty. I don't mind embarrassment, so.
How is your wrestling going this year?
It's going pretty good. I'd like to give it thanks to my coach for letting me kind of get out early on practice. Today was one of the tougher practices, but before winter break, I was wrestling around 120, and my father had a good idea to take us to Florida, and I gained about 10 pounds, so I've been on gym.
Purely your dad's fault.
Yeah.
Dads who wrestled in high school should know better than to go anywhere during spring or winter break.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. I tell you what, you got a GRT behind you here. You got a new to you razor coming from Clint Llewellyn. He's been a huge part, but I'm wondering, with your wrestling, you do a lot of strengthening, a lot of conditioning, stuff like that. Does that really help on the dirt tracks?
Yeah, kinda. Like, definitely at Stewart, I'd say, because that's definitely a track you're on the wheel a lot. But, you know, we do a little lifting on the summertime, but not crazy.
What was it? Did it help you much? You know, they're no longer there, but Clark County Speedway, Osceola, you were bad fast there. I don't know how many times I saw the back end of your car. Good Lord.
Yeah.
But you know, when you take a track like Osceola, it's small, it's a paperclip compared to to me it felt way smaller than Stewart, and I would imagine that's where some of your conditioning's coming in to play on a track like that.
Yeah, that smaller tracks, it seems like you're always turning, yeah.
So let's talk about 2015. You had in my eyes, one hell of a banner year in 2015.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
First feature win at Clark County.
Yeah.
You go to the duel in the desert, you do good there. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we went out there Friday. We didn't do so hot. Me and the old man got into her a little bit. Then Saturday, went out and won the heat race, so we pretty excited about that. I actually won it kind of blind. We blew a radiator hose and I had the antifreeze spraying on me and stuff, but I actually went out and pretty much, they said, dominated the feature. It was a fun night.
That was not the word I was looking for. I mean, it was beyond dominating. I mean,
3/4 of a track, wasn't it? You won by?
Yeah, something like that.
It's crazy.
When you raced earlier in the year, in 2015, you won your first feature ever over at Clark County. When you won that feature, did it give you an overwhelming sense of legitimacy? Like, I know I can do this now. You know, Clark County, for those that watch from Clark County, I'm not knocking any driver from Clark County, but when you go to a Marshalltown, a Boone, a Stewart, the competition, in my opinion, is much stiffer than what we've seen at Clark County. Not that they were bad drivers, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
There just isn't as many.
Yeah, there's not,
Number-wise.
yeah. You know, so when you left there, did it really give you a boost in confidence that kind of carried you through the rest of the year in some ways?
Yeah, it kind of did. like after the win at Vegas, that one meant a lot more because there's so many good guys out there, and it was actually IMCA. But
What that do to you mentally when you won that feature? Talk us through that night, because I know the stands
I
are
was
going wild.
a little disappointed I didn't see a victory lane dance. I mean, if you're gonna win
Yeah,
a victory lane
speaking
dance
of
challenge,
now that you come, I totally forgot about that. Now you
he was the winner.
You were the winner of the victory lane dance off. Can you recreate that dance for how? What was the dance that got you $500?
I don't even remember. They
I
talked me
do.
into doing it.
I remember.
It's
very
pretty
vividly.
ugly.
We'll have to.
They're not supposed to be elegant.
Well, yeah, we'll have. I'm pretty sure we can find that dance here. Maybe.
Maybe play
Yeah.
it at commercials for
Yeah.
something they're all year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2016 is here. I have already mentioned that you got the Razor coming from Clinton Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Talk about your 2016 and what you want to do this year.
We'll probably run Stewart for sure for points. We don't really know any other tracks, but definitely try and hit more specials, bigger races this year.
When's your first race coming up that you can think of?
We'll hopefully Beatrice if everything goes well, but definitely the Frostbusters. We should be there.
What is it, Jamie? You can chime in on this one. These Frostbusters, you know, Eastern Nebraska. You don't see a lot of Eastern Nebraska drivers coming out to the Frostbusters. But man, everybody in Iowa goes to the Frostbusters. Why is
Bring
that?
them in from Wisconsin, Texas,
Yeah,
Nebraska. Oh, there's a few guys that come from Nebraska.
because the Frostbusters, that's not just one night. That's like a 4-day swing, isn't it?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You start at Oski, then you go to Vinton, then you go to Marshalltown, and then you end it at Boone.
Now, did they do like a points fund
Points
between
fund.
the four
Yeah.
tracks? Oh, okay. So, it's a
I think the winner gets,
It's like a grand, I think.
it's a grand total, isn't it?
Yeah.
I got fourth last year, and I think I got like $100. I tied for fourth. So, I mean, I made more than that than I made for my series.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun because you're racing against the best of the best right away, and
pretty clean racing.
get you on top of the game. For the most part, depends on which track you're at. I mean, I don't think you can ever use the word clean and Boone in the same sentence, but
I don't know if we could ever use the word clean and you in the same sentence.
I don't hit.
It's not that
You
you're
ask
hitting
my-
people. You're airborne more than the space shuttle.
I've got a 12-year-old who keeps telling me I need to remove the brake pedal. I
Wow.
told her the other night, I said, she asked me how many wins I had, and I said 11 in 3.5, almost 4 years. And she said something, and I said, well, there's a guy who won a Sport Mod National Champion, second place IMCA National Points, and Rookie of the Year in USMTS, never won a hobby stock race. She goes, well, maybe you should start driving those cars.
Dear Lord.
Oh, boy.
Well, yeah, oh boy.
You are going to have your hands full on that one.
I don't think your sister's far behind my daughter. And the unfortunate thing for your dad and my dad is they hang out together.
Yeah.
I would think, knowing you and watching you over the last 2 years drive and kick my ass week in and week out over at Osceola, I'm really excited to see you move into this new Razor.
We are too. We're really excited.
Well, and I think for the most part, I mean, people who know you and have raced with you know that you're clean, you respect other people's stuff, and you're not. I mean, let's just be honest. A lot of those guys who have come through the ranks, minus a few that were really good when they were younger, were cocky and arrogant, and people didn't much care for them. But you're the exact opposite from what I see, and I mean, I think that's what gets you a lot of respect, and probably going to get you some help from a Mr. Llewellyn. I know he speaks. I talked to him earlier this winter, and he speaks pretty highly. of him.
Yeah.
He's a good dude. I mean, if anyone needed help, he'd be right there for him.
I can attest to that with my Razor. I know it doesn't matter if it's midnight or 2 in the afternoon. I text a picture. I was like, is this right? He goes, move it this way, move it that way. You're spot on. I'll take a picture like that. He goes, yep, good to go. Go racing. I was like, all right. So
He's one of the good guys at racing too. I mean, that whole family's a good group.
They are.
So are you kind of nervous when you go to Stewart and you see Clint there with his Razor?
No, yeah, both him and Austin are going to be up front.
Yeah. With that being said, how do you balance, at your young age, how do you balance being in school and wrestling and racing and girlfriends and all that? Because a lot of kids your age, when they get into these cars, they can have quite the big head, the ego. How do you keep it humble and down to earth?
Well, first off, if I don't
He looks at his dad.
decent grades. My dad tells me I'm not going to be in the car, so I got to get decent grades. And they're not the best, but he also tells me just to race clean, and if I'm junking other people's stuff, that he's going to sit me out. So.
Well, that would explain why I've never seen purple or blue on my car. So I thought maybe I wasn't good enough to hit or something, but yeah, that would explain it. So I appreciate that. When you look let's go 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, where do you see yourself in racing, or do you see yourself maybe pursuing something else other in life other than racing?
We'll see. We're with sponsors and what I'm doing later. I'd like to go maybe A-Mod in a couple years, but we'll see.
Maybe USMTS in 10 years?
Yeah.
If Dad will let you?
Dad better get.
Dad's over here.
Dad better get to flipping a lot of houses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dad's like, oh.
I think that would be, if you had the time and the money, I think that would be the greatest tour to go on for 1 or 2 years.
That would be fun.
The competition, and I mean, you know, you see the big names move to that, and they're not setting the world on fire. I mean, there's 8, 9, 10 guys that can win any night on that tour.
There is. Just like Todd Shoot, like went out last week. That was awesome.
I think Billy Moyer coming on board is going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, you know, you don't have to advertise. If Billy Moyer is building your cars, I'm pretty sure the advertisement's done already.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Them things are going to be bad fast, I think.
You know, I've interviewed a lot of drivers that have raced the USMTS, the MLRA, the SLMR series, a lot of your A-Mod guys your age or a little older, and they always look back at the drivers, you know, the older drivers that they kind of looked up to. At your young age is what I'm trying to say. At your young age, you've accomplished a lot, but when you go to a track, do you kind of get the butterflies in the stomach when you see like your Clint Llewellyns or your Tube Socks Cooney or, you know,
Fry.
Yeah, Tyler
Yeah.
Fry.
Sometimes, you know, it just depends on like what track and where you're at.
Who's your, I'm going to put you on the spot, who's your favorite sport mod racer?
Probably Clint.
Clint Llewellyn.
Yeah.
If you had to go A-Mod, who would be your favorite A-Mod racer?
Todd Shoot, just because we're real close to them and I've known him forever.
So you think maybe, you know, if you ever go to A-Mod, you might see yourself in a victory car someday?
We'll see.
You know, you just dial up Billy Moyer. Hey, Billy, how's it going? It's Chase.
We'll see what kind of deal he gives us on.
Oh, that's a racer.
That's good right there. Well, I mean, I could probably see some money in the Rudolph racing, but I mean, we got to do something about this sticker here.
Oh yeah, they definitely need some.
No, I'm talking that CRATE dirty word.
Hey, you say dirty word. I like the crates. You like the crate? Are you a crate or no?
Okay, so if we're gonna go to the crate open motor debate, did Julio or Juan call you and congratulate you on that win?
No.
Yeah, see, now that's where I talk to my motor builder every week, both of them, and you know, I just, that's what I like about the opens is I know the guy who puts my motor together. Now, the crates are much more economical.
Who puts the crates together? It's Dono or
The
Julio.
guys
Or
that are laying sod for me during the week and working on motors during evidently going back home to Mexico for the weekends.
So for all of you out there that are racing crate motors, if you get a win, expect Songer's sod crew to be calling you. Julio
And Edgar will give you a call and they'll thank you for supporting them. But I mean, that's just me. I mean, but in all honesty, the crate motor did what it was supposed to.
Yes.
It brought some costs down somewhat.
It kept me in
And
racing.
it keep a lot of guys that were thinking about going out. And I mean, the open motors are competitive now. They've changed what they had to change. This tire is only so wide and you can only put so much to it. And you know, those outlandish motors isn't what they needed. Now somehow the USMTS boys are still getting them to work, but that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, let's talk about your sponsors. I know you got to have a few. Now, this is kind of a challenge. You're the first driver in the 2016 Sling Dirt season I've asked about sponsors. Can you name every one of your sponsors without turning around and looking at the car? Well, you can't see much of the sponsors on this side anyways, but...
I like to give big thanks to my dad for one. I don't give him enough credit. He does a lot for me. I won't be anywhere I am without him. Mike Meyer, he busts his tail for us. Rob, Shelly, Alan, Kale, let's see, T.I. Lou, Progressive Real Estate, DMAS Construction, Texas Star, let's see.
When you got to stop and think about the number of sponsors on your car, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, Ruth Ann Meredith, she big help. It was.
Ty Lube has really come into the racing industry and a really great guy.
Yeah.
And I've noticed from what I can see.
That's Cody Malaco.
Yes.
Yep.
He really, really likes the younger drivers. I mean, and I think that's great. Those are the guys we want to make sure we keep in because they're the future.
Well, yeah, we're old in the
Us
sport.
old guys, we're getting out. So, you know.
Well,
that's
you
what
are. Maybe
That's what
I'm
I
not.
like to see is the young kids coming up, you know, that like yourself, that are respectful of other people's equipment. And I mean, that's a huge deal right there.
Yeah.
I do have one interesting question I'm going to be asking a lot of drivers this year. And this was asked of me, and I'm not going to go into my answer. And I thought it was kind of a good answer, or a good question, Jamie. Is, you know, this is what, your fourth year? Going into your fourth year racing?
This will be my third.
Third year?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jamie, you've been racing what, 6 years?
No, back since 2012 was my rookie year, so this will be the fourth year back, and I think I raced 2 years in the 90s.
So 6 years,
Yeah,
6, 7
right.
years. Now, you're definitely a name in the sport.
I'm a name from my mouth, not my driving talent.
I know 1 or 2 people in the sport. You're getting to be pretty well followed and pretty well liked in the sport. So let's say after 5 years and you know, at 30 nights a year, that's 150 races. After 150 races, if you were to retire, what do you want to consider your legacy in the sport? What do you want to look back and say, well, what did you do for the sport? What would you offer as an answer? I thought that was a good question.
So like, what would I want to be like?
Remembered for, or
Yeah, what would you
biggest
want to be remembered
contribution, or
I think it would be pretty awesome to win Super Nationals. Just to be able to say you won it and stand up on that stage in front of all those people.
I'm just telling you, if I ever get up on that stage, we're in for a show.
Yeah, that's not going to be a PG show either.
I mean, the sports bra was ready, and I didn't make it. So, but I mean, that's what I like. Is a young guy that wins. It's so exciting, you know. And there's nothing against the guy who's won 100 races or 300 races.
Right.
Gets out and waves. I mean, I like somebody who just won their 5th, 6th, you know, first feature, and they celebrate.
I cannot forget Chase Rudolf winning his first feature ever in Clark County doing that victory lane dance. And you know exactly, I know your dad remembers that dance very well. You won $500. I mean, I don't know about you, Randy, but I've never won $500 and forgot about how I won it, but.
It was rough.
I think your first win this year, you should duplicate the Rico spin out. You think you can do it?
I'll try it.
Dad says no, motor we gone.
Motor, transmission,
Yeah.
maybe the rear clip. So I tell you what, here at the end of the interview, if anybody really wants to follow, and you should follow, if anybody wants to follow Chase Rudolf Racing, how do they keep in contact with you, follow where you're at, you know, especially if you're going to do the Rico Abreu,
Yeah.
you know, celebration?
Yeah, we got a Facebook page. It's Rudolph Racing. It shouldn't be too hard to find.
How do you spell Rudolph?
RUDOLF, not PH.
Yeah, it took me forever to find you because of that.
Yeah.
So, but,
Yeah, it's-
well, thanks for coming on Slinging Dirt, and I'll be looking for that Rico Abreu
Alright.
celebration. That's a good one, Jamie. I never thought about that. Yeah,
I don't think you can duplicate it. I don't think anybody can duplicate it, but
not that.
in a hobby stock, I don't think it's possible. Maybe one of these, but
Yeah. So I tell you what, this has been Slinging Dirt. We'll be right back after commercial break.
Chase, I think, when he was at the Duel in the Desert this year in 2015, he started up front. I think he was second or third row, I think, when he started. And he literally by 3/4 of a lap, won the one night's qualifying feature. And when he got out of the car, it was so funny. He's only won one other race, and that was a feature down at Osceola, Iowa, at Clark County Speedway, just a little podunk, tiny little track, fun track. But when he's at the Duel in the Desert, he gets out of the car, it was Ricky Bobby all over again. Because he stood there and he's in the stands and he's like, it was so funny. We were all laughing, commenting about it. He didn't know what to say, how to act, who to thank. He was like, did I just do that?
It's a whole different stage down there in Vegas for the Duel.
It is. You know, speaking of the Duel, props to Chase for winning that qualifying feature. A lot of people were kind of giving me some flack for going to the Duel. They're like, why would you go there? It costs a lot of money. In your experience, you've been there several times. Is that not a race where, you know, granted, you should always want to win a race when you go to a track, but going to an event like that can really open up a lot of people's eyes to just where your mentality is in the sport as a driver. That's a big event.
To me, the more you can race on a stage like that, whether it be the Duel or Nationals or Harris Clash or something with a lot of media with it,
Yeah.
the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it's a fun time to be at those events. Even if you don't do good or you do great, it's just a fun all-around time.
What I told one guy was, I didn't make the feature. We blew a transmission, ripped the X-brace out of the Razor, we were toast. But here's what's gonna happen. 2016 Duel in the Desert, you know what my phone's gonna do? It's gonna blow up. Everybody's gonna be like, you going to the Duel? You going to the Duel? You going to the Duel? And if I go, well, and this probably will happen, if I go, well, I'd like to, it's not that I don't want to, I would like to, but I just don't know if I have, the money to get out there, because it is an expensive trip to go on. Well, now sponsors are gonna be like, well, he's racing on IMCA TV, he's racing in an IMCA sanctioned event, or not sanctioned, but IMCA held event. He's on a big stage, like you said. This helps with sponsors. And I think when you go to those big races like your Super Nationals, your Harris Clash, the Night of 1,000 Stars, your Duel in the Desert, the experience that you get as a driver there helps you big time. It's one thing to go to your local dirt track, and there are some really good local dirt tracks across the U.S. that put on one hell of a show on your weekly race, and you've got to bring your A game. But it's
when you get to go into some of these bigger events, even like
those
Spring Nationals last weekend,
Yeah.
you get some of these bigger events, even on a smaller scale, a bigger event, and you've got names there that, on a weekly aspect, they are the guy to beat. But then you put all of those people together at these events across the nation, wherever they are, and now you've got such a class of drivers that you've got to work your butt off even to make it through a B.
Well, good idea bringing up the Spring Nationals and Beatrice Speedway. When I don't know if you were at the car show when this was brought up. You look at Jay Noteboom. Jay Noteboom wins the Beatrice Spring Nationals. Very, very good driver. He's had a lot of success, but what all has he won for a big show in the last 2 or 3 years? Not knocking him.
The last 2 or 3 years, he's kind of been shy when it's racing. I mean, he might get out and play this weekend, he might not. He might go next weekend, he might not.
But when at the Beatrice Spring Nationals, we had Terry Phillips, Ryan Gustin, Jason Crone. Well, I don't know if Gustin was there, but Terry Phillips, Jesse Sabine, Jordan Grabowski, Johnny Sadoff, Dylan Smith, Ricky Thornton Jr. was there, Paul Stone was there. We had the best of the best. Those races at Beatrice could have been any one of the race champions at Boone Super Nationals. Right. But the fact that Jay Noteboom came out, and he's good enough to run with any of those guys. I'm not discrediting him at all in that area. But the fact that, in the last 2 or 3 years, he hasn't won nothing, and then he just comes out, turn 4 by maybe a wheel, and he wins the Beatrice Spring Nationals, people are still talking about that. If it was Grabowski, would have been like, oh, okay.
If it was Jordan, it's just another win for Jordan.
If it's Sabine, it's just another win for Sabine. If it was Johnny Sadoff. But the fact that Jay Noteboom all of a sudden comes out with this new car and wins, oh my God, now it also helped that, the way he won it, on the last lap in the dramatic fashion that he did. So I think that's interesting to know right there. Tell you what, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come right back, and we're going to talk with Ron Sample about transmissions. So stay tuned. It's Slinging Dirt. Everybody, welcome back to Slinging Dirt. Buddy Ray, Matt Dennis. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, it was just a matter of time before we had this as a tech tip on this show that I host. Transmissions. I don't know of anybody that's blown up more transmissions than me. Really? You guys? Back when you were sobbing?
Back when I was with Sobbing, we blew up 13, 14, 15 in 1 year.
But
True.
you were doing it over the course of 100 races.
True.
I'm blowing up 20 over the course of about 40 races.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's not good.
That's, yeah. I don't know how many times I blew up 2 in one night.
It must be all that high horsepower you have.
Oh yeah, you know that 300 horsepower that I've got. I mean, whew, man, I'm telling you, they don't want to see me on Dodge Street with that kind of motor. Whew. Wait a second, they're already out there, but yeah, tailgate it up. So I went out to Hastings, Nebraska. I'm using a Power Glide supplier, Ron Sample, out of Hastings, Nebraska. Ron Sample taught me a lot. And I'm not going to sit here and discredit or trash talk any of the Power Glide builders out there. Everybody's really good at what they do. I had been using a local builder for, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 years. Actually 2 different ones here in the local area. I was breaking a lot of transmissions, blowing a lot of transmissions up. And it wasn't always the same thing. It was a mixture of a bunch of different things. So get a change of scenery, maybe bring somebody fresh in on my program. I went to Ron Sample and he taught me a lot, and knock on wood, we've been a lot better. So without further ado, here's Ron Sample from Sample Transmissions. All right, so here's today's tech tip here on Slinging Dirt. A lot of you guys know, everybody's made fun of me. You've heard about this. This is Ron Sample of Sample Transmissions. I have blown more trannies than what they've got out in Hollywood. Ha, I know, here comes the Caitlyn Jenner jokes. But in all seriousness, I've blown probably in the last 4 or 5 years 20 plus transmissions, and that's not helping the racer at all. You're spending way more money than you need to. For a good year or two, I've been told about Sample racing transmissions. I've gone to Ron, and needless to say, I've been very, very impressed with what you've done so far. I've used guys like Wickersham. Scott Wickersham builds really nice trannies. You have Roger Hayden up there in Bennington. Very, very good transmissions. But when you blow so many transmissions, after a while you kind of just want to change the scenery. So I decided to work with Ron, and so far we've been pretty well impressed. I have blown 2 transmissions. That wasn't because of the transmission, that was because of my fault, and a lot of the other transmissions I know were my fault. So we're out here today, we're picking up 2 transmissions, but while we're here, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ron. How long have you been doing this?
40 years.
40 years.
I didn't start doing
just a time or two.
Yeah, I didn't start doing the racing stuff till about 3 years ago.
Oh, so you're pretty new, really, in the longevity of things.
Yeah, I've been building trannies for 40 years, 35 to 40.
Now, I tell you what, if you guys think just because he's got a small shop and it's not big, it is literally maybe a 1 1/4 car garage that we're standing in. It's a very old-timey looking shop. I see you got Tyler Fry's door panel off of his
BMS car sitting up here. You've worked with some big names already in 3 years. Now you do specialize in the power glides, but you also do Burt, Bren, Falcon, stuff like that. So with today's tech tip, what I want to go into, especially with power glides, is, you know, how do you build your glides? What's your process? And when a guy's going to buy a used glide, what do they want to look for?
Main thing you look for is the case ain't broke.
Okay.
Because the cases are getting so hard to find. And they make coarse pine output shaft ones too. But as long as the case is good, you can switch all the internals and still use the case. You got to do some modifying on the case to get them to work, but they'll still work. And you can just switch all the internals and make it the fine spline. So
how long does it typically take you here in your shop, garage, whatever you want to call it? How long does it usually take you to build one of these glides?
Oh, from tear down to cleaning, probably 5 hours.
Wow, 5. I always thought you could do these, you know, at home in 3 hours or so.
If it's a stock one, then you got to do all the modifying. It takes a little longer. But if it's one I've already done, I can do one of them in a couple hours.
Now, the one thing I was asked, or when I first called you, the one thing you right away asked me was, do you drive B-mod, stock car, A-mod, you know, hobby stock? What is the difference? Because if there wasn't a difference, you wouldn't have asked me.
Well, the main thing is, if you're running a sport mod, you have to have the output shaft cut so you can run the longer yoke, because the rear end travels so much.
Right.
And the stock car and the hobby stock, the rear end doesn't move as much, so the drive shaft don't go in and out, so you don't necessarily have to have it cut for an 8-inch. But they'll interchange. If you got an 8-inch, it'll go in a hobby, a stock car, or sport mod.
Now, here in 2016, you were just telling me before we started the segment here that you're changing all your glides to where you can put it in anything now.
Yeah, I'm getting to where, so I don't have to have so many set in here. I'm just having them cut for 8-inch yoke. That way one tranny will fit in sport mod, hobby, or stock car.
Oh, okay.
That way basically I only have to have one set in here, and then the only difference is whether they want a 182 low or a 176.
Right. Now, typically a power glide, if I remember right, it's $500 new. If you buy a glide for $500 new from you, what's it normally cost the average racer to get refreshened up or gone through?
Oh, as a roundabout rule, I figure about $200 to freshen one.
Okay.
That's figuring clutches and everything, and it's roughly right about there. And if it's something different than that, if I get in and it's all tore up and I got to have a bunch of hard parts and it's going to be more or whatever, I normally try to call them and tell them ahead of time, so
Right.
they don't show up to pick it up and expect it to be 200 and find out it's 2.5 or 400.
You've actually told me in the past that a lot of times your glides will come back at the end of the season. When I say the end of the season, we're talking 30, 40 shows. A lot of times it's not the internals down here that are bad, it's just the seals just need replaced.
Yeah. Normally what happens is the seals go out.
Now, to replace the seals, that's all you're doing. What's that normally run?
Oh, normally you'll have about $75 to $100 in if all you gotta do is reseal it. But
And then
a lot of times, most of the guys, if they come in and the clutches are worn a little bit, they want to just go ahead and replace them. That way they don't have to worry about it.
That way you get the peace of mind.
They'd rather stick it in knowing everything's fresh and not have to worry about it.
Oh, okay.
Instead of putting the used clutches back in it and get halfway through the season and then clutches go out and they're leading the race and the training starts slipping and then they don't.
Yeah, we've had that happen.
But it's more peace of mind.
Now you do like I said earlier, you outside of the glides, you also work on your birds, Brens, Falcons, stuff like that. So on a Burt, Bren, or a Falcon, I know this is kind of a tough question, but on an average rebuild on one of those, what do those typically set the racer back?
Roughly about 300.
About 300 to rebuild.
Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you this. We were talking about this before we started doing the segment here. Being a transmission supplier and builder, in 5 years, where do you see the Power Glide and dirt track racing? They are getting tough to find.
Yeah, unless somebody actually comes out and makes aftermarket cases, I'm sure the cases will be gone.
Yeah, at that point, do you think we're going to have to, you know, IMCA or NASCAR or whoever the sanctioning body
They're
is?
going to have to either let them start running Brins and everything, or I'm working on a Turbo 350 now that I've been messing with trying to get for
okay.
direct drive. And if it pans out, a lot of guys might go to that.
Now, you think there's still quite a availability with 350 cases?
There's 350, Turbo 350s laying all over the place.
Right, but these things are definitely getting hard to find.
The Power Glides, there's been so many, between drag racing and dirt racing, so many got broke and crushed, and years ago nobody wanted them, so they just hauled them for scrap.
Okay.
And now it's getting to where everybody's running them now, and there ain't very many left.
Now, you were talking, you alluded to the aftermarket cases, but you were the first person that's ever talked to me about this. On these bell housings, you can actually replace this with an aftermarket blow-proof.
Yeah.
Now, what two classes allow that now?
The hobby stock, or the sport mod, and the stock car, you can run the aftermarket bell housing.
The hobby stocks are not allowed.
No, hobby stocks you can't.
Does that make any sense to you?
Not really.
Just throwing that out there.
But when do they make a rule change that makes any sense? Normally they don't. But
if you were to take, $500 for a glide from you, and you get that aftermarket blow-proof and get rid of the stock bell housing, how much extra does that normally run?
The aftermarket bell housing, I think, is about $250.
Oh, okay. 250, 300, somewhere there. Now, do you have any guys actually running that aftermarket?
Yeah,
bell
I got
housing?
a couple guys that have got them.
Any names you want to mention?
Dan Pittman's got one. Who else has got them? I got 3 or 4 guys that are running them.
All right, and you're simply putting them on just because the stock bell housings here are cracking and whatnot.
And they're a lot heavier.
I would imagine so.
They're a lot heavier bell housing than the stock one, and you cut the front of the case off and they bolt in through the front pump bolts and stick them in like a stock, just like a regular glide, but they're a lot heavier case.
Alrighty.
And then guys ain't breaking them quite as easy.
Right. That would make sense. Now, when you run the heavy blow-proof up here, do you have to support the back of the transmission at all?
Not necessarily, because the bell housing's usually what breaks.
Yeah. Well, unless you're me, then I'm blowing everything.
That's usually the weakest part on them.
Right.
Other than the tail housing, if you get a drive shaft that's out of balance, it'll break them, or if you get a rear end that comes loose.
Alrighty. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break during the tech segment here. I want Ron to show us up close some of the casing, some of the parts that you put in these things. So I tell you what, stay tuned. We'll be right back here on Slingin' Dirt.
2016 Producers Hybrids B-Mod Nationals will be held on March 25th and 26th with qualifying races on Friday night, where the top 6 spots for the A feature will be determined. On Saturday night will be the last chance features, with the top 5 going to the A feature along with the C and B mains for the last 3 spots. The winner will get a $2,500 paycheck. Can anybody get into the top 3 spots besides our awesome trio of drivers, Tyler Fry, Scott Stiskel, and Kyle Preiner? The last place in the A feature will pay $300. Not bad. Also on hand will be the Nebraska 305 Sprint Series and the popular Sport Compacts. With $2,500 and $300 to start the feature, don't miss out on this exciting preseason special that is sure to draw the best drivers across from the Midwest. For more info, go to ButlerCountySpeedway.com or call Brent at 402-369-0233 or Derek at 402-369-0535.
All right, so I tell you what, here at the tail end of this tech segment, on these power glides, there seems to be a lot of, I'm not going to say misconceptions because it's not a misconception, but everybody's got their own take on maintenance on these power glides. What is your take? What should be a proper maintenance program?
Well, normally I tell them every 5-6 nights, just pull the drain plug, drain the oil, put the plug back in and put oil back in it.
In your sample glides, how much oil do you recommend in these?
They'll normally hold about 4 quarts, unless it's in a hobby and they got the stock converter, and then they'll take 7.
Right.
But
Is there any fluid that you recommend? B&M, Royal Purple,
most of them
store
Most of them
brand?
just run the regular store brand. I've got some guys that have run the synthetic, and I got a guy out of Missouri that runs them, that runs Lucas additive in his.
That heavy duty
Yeah.
oil stabilizer stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he swears by it. And
When you've taken so many of these apart, that does make me want to ask a good question. Do you see a difference in the wear in these things when you run a Royal Purple or a Lucas or anything
Not
like
really.
that? They
No,
all look
they're-
about the same.
They're all about the same. And these things, they don't generate a whole bunch of heat, so you don't have to worry about the oil breaking down.
Right.
And you're not actually putting that many miles on them. And normally the guys will just run the Walmart, O'Reilly's, Napa
Yep.
brand, just the cheaper stuff, because some of that stuff's
When you're
pretty pricey. So
when you're doing your weekly maintenance on your race car, is there anything on the transmission that you should, take a look at?
normally the guys will go through, look, make sure they ain't got any leaks. I know a lot of the guys will look around the bell housing to make sure they didn't hit something and crack a case.
Alrighty.
And see if, because normally when I get done with them, I'll paint them black, and that way if they get a crack in them, it'll show up.
Oh, because the case is aluminum, so you'll see that gray.
And then you'll see the gray in it, and it's just kind of a precaution deal to kind of look at them just to make sure.
When you have a transmission, can we actually rotate this one over?
Yeah.
So, good question for you here. So, let's say this is all black, and someone says, you got some yahoo like a Buddy Ray out there who cracks a transmission. Can you diagnose what's going on with the car versus where it's breaking or cracking on the transmission?
Majority of the time, yeah. Normally they will either crack right here at the back, which is more from vibration, driveline. If you get a rear end that bar comes loose and it slams together, then it'll normally crack it up here across the front of the bell housing.
That's if the rear end comes too far
Yeah,
forward.
if it comes forward and ends up bottoming the drive shaft out,
Okay.
and if you get one that the drive shaft comes loose and comes out and just vibrates like crazy, it'll pretty much break them everywhere.
Oh,
You know how that is.
Yeah, I know how that is. So, a lot of people in the past, especially for everybody that's following me on Facebook, when I'm at the track and I'm talking about, well, I just blew another transmission, everybody's going, well, where did it break at? Well, I've broken them up here on the front of the bell housing. I've broken them back here. I've broken them back here. I've had the whole thing completely explode. If you have a transmission, we're talking from the bell housing back, if it completely explodes, is that a combination of things? Is there anything that a person could sit there and go, well, we know it's the transmission. It's not the car. It's not us. It was the transmission. Do you ever see signs of that?
Oh, a lot of them you can get, if you get them to where the drive line is not aligned straight, if the rear end's caught clear over in the corner in the car to where the drive line isn't running straight, when the drive shaft is actually bent, you get more vibration out of it.
So but check your drive
And,
shaft a
yeah,
lot.
and if you get, and a lot of the guys run 10, 12 degrees of pinion angle, you get your pinion angle down quite a ways, you get a lot more vibration out of them.
That's where that 176 comes into play.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, they're making some, Dan Pittman there in Grand Island, he made an adapter for his to come off the bolts here and goes underneath your transmission mount on the back.
Okay, and that just
So
helps
when it-
stabilize the
Yeah,
transmission.
to stabilize it where the back end's hanging, because that way it just stiffens it up.
Right. If you have, I know, I did see one of your transmissions outside there. The entire tail section is gone. What's that normally a symptom of?
They lost a drive shaft on that one.
So if you lose a drive shaft, you're going to lose a tail section.
Yeah, and it'll explode them if you get drive line to it. And the worst thing on them is if you get a front U-joint out.
Oh, okay.
Because that just vibrates them like crazy, and the aluminum is going to break.
Right.
The vibration just gets to it.
Alrighty. Well, I tell you what, Ron. Here on Slinging Dirt, a lot of people all over the nation, they're watching us talk about power glides or listening to you talk. If somebody wants to get a hold of Ron's sample and get, a couple, 2, 3 sample glides, I have 4. With that being said, how do they get a hold of you?
They can either call me at 402-460-8022, or I've got a deal on Facebook.
Sample Transmissions on Facebook?
Yeah, it's under Ron Sample.
Oh, just Facebook Ron Sample.
Yeah.
Now, you actually have some family that races too, don't you?
Yeah.
Is there a
little
Tyler
brother.
Sample?
That's my son,
That's your son?
and he helps Dylan Thompson with his hobby stock. And he runs some in a little 4-cylinder, but he's talking about getting back into it. So.
Oh, okay.
And I used to race, and this is my way of staying in it.
Well, I tell you what, he's got to know what he's doing because he's had Tyler Fry, Angel Munaz. You've had some big names. So,
Yeah.
Ron, thanks for your time, and hopefully I won't be seeing you a whole lot this summer.
Yeah, other than at the track.
Other than at the track. So, tell you what, we'll be right back here on Slinging Dirt TV.
Come to Diamond Auto Detailing to get your car showroom shine again for $149.99.
So Ron went over some good stuff. Anything you want to add on a power glide?
On a power glide, you gotta make sure those couplers are locked in.
Yeah, and the other thing, Jeff Squibb, Nelly Squibby, however you want to call my crew chief, it was so funny when we put one of Ron's power glides in my car. He took that coupler and he puts it in the hole, and he's sitting there and he's moving it in and out, and he's trying to turn it, and I was like, it's got to go in farther. It's got to go in farther. He's like, what do you mean it's got to go in farther? It's in all the way. I was like, no, it's not. On the end of the coupler, there's actually 2 little notches, and it's when you slide that coupler in, it's got to catch the dog legs, and you'll feel it click and drop in.
Yeah, and I've done this myself, as have many guys. You slide it in there and you swear you got it clicked into the second one, and it's not. So you check and double check and triple check that, because otherwise you will blow the pumps out of them, and now you just have to change the transmission.
The one thing my dad did, and a lot of guys don't do this. I thought they did, but they don't. When you throw the coupler in the front of the transmission and it's locked in, it's in all the way, Dad would take a white paint pen and he would draw a line all the way around that coupler. Well, then we've got 2 or 3 couplers at the house, so what he would do is he would actually take the couplers, stand them up on end, and he would measure and put that white line at every one of the couplers. They all drop in at the same point. It's not like you're going to have a 1/4 of an inch more coupler than in one transmission over the next transmission. So he did that. So that's the one thing I wanted to add is when you get your coupler in there, just take a white paint pen, go around the coupler. It'll never come off. And a lot of times you can actually see where it's actually writing on the coupler. When the coupler goes in to your seal, you'll see the wear marks on the coupler, but Dad didn't go by that. He just stuck it all the way in, drew a line all the way around the coupler, and we were good.
Well, another thing, when you get the transmission put up in, you get it bolted down tight, that coupler should slide back and forth roughly 3/16 or 1/8 of an inch, but there should be a little bit of play in it. And if there's no play in it, you need to take it right back out because it's not locked in.
And once again, if you even try to run something like that, you can still burn the pump out. You can do all kinds of nasty stuff with your transmissions. The one thing on the transmissions, when you were with Sabi, how often did you guys change training fluid?
We change it every 4 nights.
Every 4 nights.
So we were changing it once a week, just because that's how often we ran.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Probably on Monday night.
And there's some guys that, oh, I change it every 50 races, or I change it once a season.
For no more than what training fluid is, just change it every 4 nights and it's cheap insurance.
Right, I mean, what, $2 a quart, $3 a quart maybe?
That $8 changing every, a lot of guys around here run the 1 or 2 nights a week. So at 1 night a week, change it every 4 weeks. At 2 nights a week, change it every 2 weeks. It's $8. It saves a $700 transmission. Right. I'm not going to say it saves a $700 transmission, but it's not going to hurt it by no means.
Cheap insurance.
Cheap insurance. Drop the filter out. But that's the one thing that really shocked me is a lot of guys will change the training fluid, but they don't drop the filter. And I'm like, well, wouldn't you want to drop the filter? Because that filter is going to catch any metal shavings, anything. That fluid, you can tell an awful lot about the condition of the transmission by the training fluid, but I've seen training, trust me, I've seen it with my own stuff. I've changed that training fluid and it looks really good, but then for whatever reason, I'll drop the pan and there's some metal shavings in that filter. So that filter is really key, and that filter can really tell you what's going on.
Right, and for a lot of guys, they don't want to take the risk of dropping the pan and putting it back up with a new gasket and having it leak. So they've got the drain plug on the bottom of the pan, and they just drain it out, fill it up, and call it good. And for some of those guys, they're changing them often enough just for maintenance, have them opened up, checked out, freshened, whatever you want to do to it. We're just changing the fluid is fine because, hey, I'm going to have this thing opened up in 6 weeks anyways, and just snooping around inside and make sure everything's fine.
Right. So I tell you what, call Ron Sample. Ron can get you hooked up with good transmission. The one nice thing is we were out in Vegas. We cracked a transmission. I called Ron. He called me back within 10 minutes. And he was more than helpful on helping to diagnose what we were doing with the transmission. When I first met him, he came up, dropped the transmissions off, watched us install the transmissions in the car. Ron's a really, really down-to-earth good guy. So I tell you what, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to be right back. And we're going to talk to, we're not going to talk. We're just going to watch. It'll be Song or Says. So stay tuned. It's Slinging Dirt TV.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff with DriveDirtCars.com. Does your current race operation look like this? Well, if it does, give us a call at 815-990-2657. We're actually financing Harris race cars and CMC crate motor connection crate motors for your racing operation. Our payments range anywhere from $200 to $350 a month. If you'd like to get a new motor or you'd like to get a new chassis, give us a call, 815-990-2657.
Everybody, welcome back to Slinging Dirt. It's that time of the week where we have Song or Says. Last week's Song or Says. Facebook updates. Well, we changed the lug nuts on the car tonight. Got to thank all the boys and all the sponsors.
Congratulations, you know how to put a lug nut on.
Woo! Yeah. So
it gets to be, and I agree with Jamie, it gets to be too much at times. Put the lug nuts on, hung the body, put the rivets in the body, change the oil in the motor. Okay, congratulations, you can do maintenance.
Gap the spark plugs.
Right.
Yeah.
And not to sound negative about it, but congratulations, you can do maintenance.
Yeah. I was talking to Jamie on the phone about it, and he was chuckling, and I was chuckling about it. Hell, you chuckled about it. If you go pick up a new car, that's cool. Put that on Facebook. You just picked up a $1,000 sponsor. You put that on Facebook. That's cool. We like to see each other grow in the sport. But yeah, scrape the mud off the car tonight.
Just like everybody else.
Yeah. Tell you what, I would love to see everybody, listen close. I want everybody to do something minor to the car. I want you to scrape mud. Take some Windex, go Windex the quarter panel. Pop the hood off the car, make sure the engine's still in the car. Look underneath the back end of the car, make sure the rear end's still in the car. And I want you to do an update to Jamie Songer's Facebook. Let Jamie Songer know the condition of your car. So go to Facebook and update your program with Jamie Songer. But I tell you what, enough about Jamie Songer. Let's go see what he's got to say this week. So here's Jamie Songer.
Warning, the related content may be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
So it's still early in the season and I see all these guys posting,
took my car here, took my car there, going to be fast this year. We are changing things up. You people crack me up. I mean, come on. If you're running 12th in every race last year, suddenly you're going to be, oh, I know, national champion, going for a national title this year. If I could only finish 6 races.
And then the same guy gets on Facebook and knocks a chassis builder. I mean, people, if you're gonna knock a chassis builder that has been around forever and a guy who races and won a ton of races and you haven't won anything ever, I think you were actually the baby that lived, but the sperm really didn't win the race. I think something happened, because you ain't got a shot in hell winning nothing. There's no way you ever won anything, let alone that race. I mean, come on. And then you get on there, chassis builder screwed me. Dude, if there was 17 other people on there saying the same chassis builder screwed them, I might buy the story. But if it's just you, then what the hell? And there's several of them out there that do this. I mean, come on. If a guy wins 30 races and then all of a sudden goes to a different chassis and doesn't win any, then there might be something wrong. But that guy's got credibility. It'd be like me bitching about a chassis builder. I've won a whopping 11 races ever. Come on. I just get in, get lucky, and once in a while win a race here and there. It's usually because everybody else broke, but whatever it takes. But I mean, some of these guys and their dreams, and if you have to have all those people help you, that's great. You got all those people willing to help you. I wouldn't win a race ever if it wasn't for people to help me. But don't knock them after it didn't work for you. Doesn't mean they tried to screw you. It just means you drive differently than the guy that set it up. And it goes all over the place, from hobbies to B-mods to stock cars to mods. Hell, I don't know who the hell set Coonies up, but it had to be one of the donut makers from Casey's, because that thing turns. I don't know how, with his little round ass in it. But if you're gonna get help from everybody and then knock them, hey, I got news for you, jackwagon. Ain't nobody helping you before long.
Oh boy, good old Jamie Songer. You know, honestly, Jamie will send the videos. I don't always watch the videos because I like the element of surprise with Songer.
And everything Songer does is a surprise.
Yeah. Songer is a surprise to the human race. But I tell you what, he is good at what he does. I mean, and Songer says has a better ring than Cooney says, or Owen says, or Herb says.
And he's not afraid to say whatever's on his mind.
I give the guy mad props for speaking what's on his mind. But once again, to reiterate, please go update your program to Jamie Songer's page on Facebook. I think he's looking for more relevant updates on Facebook, but he honestly does love to see how many lug nuts you know how to change and how many quarts of oil your motor takes. So please go to Facebook and update your program. Well, for this week, I'm Buddy Ray, Matt Dennis. That's it for Slinging Dirt. We ran out of time for Jimmy Owens. We couldn't get him on today's show, so sorry, Jimmy. Maybe next week. So stay tuned. Same bat channel, same bat time. Pow. We'll be right back.